DJ, DrJones, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining. I know it's early for you in Australia, me being in the UK. What time is it for you?
Oh, it's 7:15 at the moment. So pretty good.
Love that. So, you are one of our content creators, community developer of some very useful tools that some of us in the community have had the opportunity to check out over the past, couple of years since you've been active. But I note I'm not sure that you've been that active lately.
No, there's a story there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So Tyrell-Yutani Hub is your product, is your baby.
hmm
I'm keen to dig into that. But could we start just by a short intro to yourself? DJ, how long have you been into influence and how did you first get into it?
Well, for me, it was basically the launch, like the first Reddit adverts came out around April to whatever that was, 2021, maybe
Yeah.
2020, something like that. And that's around my birthday. So I was like, oh, cool, this looks good. A nice space game. I was just getting into crypto. So it kind of all aligned. And it was the first sale. I'd never had a wallet. So I was like, oh, cool, it's this game. I like it. The vibe, Elite Dangerous, all the stuff people talk about, Factorio, like it just ticks all my boxes. So that was wicked. So then basically, yeah, got a wallet, MetaMask, I think, first time, and then waited for the first sale. Really excited, and they had the bonuses, like the first 100 asteroids would get the times 4, and so I was like, I'm getting a times 4. I'm in. And I had, you have no idea. You just pick a rock somewhere. You don't know anything. Flatter. So yeah, picked, I think, 3 rocks from the first sale. Got one 4 times. Like I made, and I remember in hindsight, gas would have been stupid.
Yeah, it was.
Like, yeah. And I was just clicking, yep, yep. I had no idea, just accepting because I wanted to be early. And yeah, so that was it. And then joined first quite early as well, like I think ninth or 12th member of first or something like that. So, and then just kind of loitered for 3 years. And then the dev stuff is actually partly what kept me engaged and into the game. So yeah.
I love that you came in via Reddit. A lot of people have said that actually, that that was their first exposure to the game. But this was your influence is literally your first crypto experience.
Yeah, basically, I mean, I've done well, like Influence and Parallel are the two that I
Mm,
got really interested in, really liked the game, the artwork, all the just the team and the vibe and the Discord's really supportive, both, like so quite lucky in that those have turned out to be both premier projects delivering good stuff. So yeah, so this was my first one, and just like the community, as you know, is has been solid, from day one. Just the team is so open, everyone's so nice, it's been really good.
So, in those long intervening 3 years between the initial sale and the eventual launch this year, not only were you in the Discord theory crafting with a bunch of the rest of us, but you were also busy creating your own tools, I guess.
Yeah, well, it's interesting story, the growth, I guess,
Yeah,
relatively
tell
this
us
one,
your
right?
story. That's what we're all about.
Yeah, I'll just start here. So COVID as well, right? So massive amounts of internal downtime, stuck at home, and like I'm quite techie. My job's quite techie, like visual, but with lots of coding, problem solving. So I kind of it all aligned at once for me. Influence, the openness of influence, the sort of API access, and the brilliant communication, and just feeling welcome and stuff. So all these things kind of aligned. And at the same time, I was looking for a personal project that would, I really like, I don't know, data visualization, all these things tick my box of just being able to grasp huge amounts of information at a visual level
Yeah.
quickly. Like I love that problem. So, and this game is that in spades for me. It's amazing. So and I'd never done web dev per se, tinkered in Python. So I know, jack of all, master of none kind of vibe is how I roll. So basically started tinkering and then started getting somewhere. And then it was actually in the first Discord where there was this, the crew sheet that would go around all the time from Star Wars Freak, like just a manual kind of rarity guide of crew and titles, which were quite opaque for a lot
Yeah,
of
so
people.
it's quite small on screen, but what we're looking at is the RVAD job description, the job titles, and
Yeah.
the various categories underneath those. Something that many of us were glued to for quite some time.
Yeah. So seeing that going around all the time and knowing that it was just, it was a reasonably straightforward count or just a sort of what's the kind of averaging of different roles and where they are and the,
So
the
you're
same.
accounting how many of each job title
Yeah,
existed, right?
basically the rarity amongst the total crew across classes and all that kind of stuff. So now that so for me that that was an interesting challenge. It's like, oh, I can make that. I think I can make that live was the the light bulb moment for me.
Because we were all trying to second guess what are these job titles and the
Yeah,
bonuses would
yeah,
do
exactly.
and be.
And then obviously someone would roll something, and then that would become the rarest. Suddenly, I guess Navigator Justice, right, was the isn't that the dream role that no one's had yet? Like Pilot Navigator Justice or something like that is the. I think there's one like that. Oh, Management Justice. Yeah, there's one which would be if it rolled, it would be like God roll of traits.
I can't talk. I've got one.
Yeah, yeah. There you go. So now that was interesting because it required, like not naively, at some point you want to index everything. You want to have a copy of the database for all the crew, and so then went full into that stack of just scraping everything from the game, and then learning to read contract events so you can tell when a crew's been minted, what they have, so getting it to be live.
Had you ever interacted with smart contracts before?
Nothing, like never had a database interaction before. So
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
like crazy, like cool. Like it's yeah, well, it's been up and down, hey, like to be honest, because I'm not a developer, so there's a bit where my brain just turns back into squidgy shapes and colors and I go, oh, luckily probably mapped to that is the development of ChatGPT and just being able to talk to a thing that knows what it's trying, almost knows. It's been pretty good to me, ChatGPT. Yeah, it has been a lifeline. So yeah, and then basically got it working, got it up there, and then that led to the idea of I need a brand, I need a name for what I'm about to do. And for me, like movies are massive in my life, so I took two of my favorite movies, Blade Runner and Aliens, and basically took the corporations from within them, fused them together, and that became kind of my brand, if you like. That's how that came about. It's an interesting thing, just even watching the repossession stuff, just the corporations and technology and humans, and it's even now with our own AI systems. It's a real challenge to keep it nice and good and not too gnarly for people. I'm a good Yutani, I know there's a bad Yutani out there, but I reckon I'm a good one. So then I got really into crew. Hey, like I guess keeping on this thread. So crew became a thing. Like Denka had a Dahlia.info, and there was a few other things that were very asteroid centric that were working and gave you everything. So I felt crew was a bit underserved,
Yeah.
and I'd sprung into it from crew. So that became my focus for a long time. Was just reading everyone's wallets, getting their crew stats, all this kind of stuff. So yeah. So basically ended up with a pretty good indexer, a database that was updated like every 40 minutes, just looking at the events and not spamming the API. And then on this journey, got into the visual side of it. So, sorry. So I've just been using React and a template for the look, but then I started realizing a lot of my stuff I I'm so particular that I wanted control over designing the look of lots of things. So I got into the crew assignment thing, which again was another opaque choice system that was very hard to explain. So I, came up with a nice Plotly ribbon graph that shows you all the sort of choice pathways, and all you hover and you get all the information about that stuff. So that was really good. That filled a nice niche for that first year and a half prior to pre-release. So I really enjoyed that. And then along the way, it started, and then obviously sorry, let's get,
The crew assignments flowchart, very handy.
yeah. It's kind of, there's a skip button now, which is even handier, where you can just choose.
But when you're deep into it and there's barely any content,
yeah,
it gives you something to engage with. So appreciate that.
And it was nice. Like for me, again, that's something I really enjoy, even in my job and career, is simplifying information as elegantly as possible, and as trying to distill it down to as the smallest nuggets. I love that challenge. So basically did the same kind of thing paralleled with asteroids. So ownership, database, rankings, taking the MER, the MER scores from that side of that chat, and then just trying to get that presented nicely and elegantly, which I think went really well. And then obviously on the journey, I started getting into being able to draw and process information how I wanted. So these are all custom SVG, these are all built live from data. So, you can interact with them, and it's literally just drawing flat shapes, but they all look 3D and pretend to be 3D and stuff. So, and that was amazing. Like the system map, which took me so long. I was so proud of it because it runs on mobile. There's a subset of them that run on mobile, which was amazing, just to have a live map in my pocket. So yeah, so that's been really good, and I learned so many good skills, but quite messy and very, so I've never open sourced it. I've never been particularly like verbose about my solutions. It's just like, that worked. And yeah, so it's definitely been a bit fly by wire. And then, like, again, just interacting with the apes. So that's all the lot information for asteroids, and then trying to visualize, for town planning and stuff like that. Like, there's definitely a limit with, you'd run it on AP and it just explodes your computer. But most other asteroids, you can actually interact heavily and get lots of data mining from the game itself. Hey, so that's kind of, so for me, the general journey has been that, just love exploring the data, enjoyed repping the crew side of it early on when it was very opaque. I think that's got better now, and the Unstoppable Games information has got better to support it. So I feel like the hot need for that has kind of tapered. And then in terms of like the change for me, and I guess the quietness of me, was the switch to Starknet and the API v2. So basically, API v2 destroyed my whole stack. Something about my host and my version of Node and something, it just couldn't function. I couldn't import the API anymore, and everything just brick walled. And it's like kind of gutting. Like for a while, and a stupid while, 3 months, I was trying to copy the code and strip out the bit that wasn't working, like patching. And then I just realized that it was silly, and I was fighting the new level that I needed to hit. I needed to get this to work so I could use the code without having to kludge it in and sideways, which would, I'd be behind the curve forever. So then, so I basically had to, and so the journey since then has been choosing a new host, moving to Next, which is a completely different version of, the React side of things. TypeScript, suddenly it's all typed, and I've never done TypeScript before, which is, suddenly all my old code stops working and needs to be cleaned up. And so I've been wading through that journey, for a while. So that's kind of where I am now. I have a local version that is almost fully functional, and I need to get it to still work on my host, which is some API database access problems. Unless you pay for the cell and you don't get very good server stuff in Next, it seems like I have to actually sort of strip out stuff and do it a different way. So that's where that's at. So it's close, but I'm not sweating it because the game came out and I need to get good at the game as well. So the other thing was that basically I did testnet. I guess we'll go down a bit. Like in the background, one of my passions has been trying to visualize the production chain, right? So
Yeah.
Illyrium's gear is amazing, but it stresses me out. I can't load the whole thing, and I want to see it a slightly different way. So I tried very hard to. So this one's like like an SVG model, right? Just drawing an artwork of how I think I want to see it. So I had a good plan of what I like to see, nodes and connections. Start coding it, get a version that's interactive so you can drag these around, all the noodles move, wicked. All right, so, something simple, just, some simple recipe of like a few things. Oh, cool, that's working. And my thing at the time was to try and work out if I could see where materials stopped, right? So if you can tell that you can do a C-type all the way up to there, and therefore all of that stuff before.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, that was my intent, right? Is I want to see where the merging is of resources and asteroids, and try and visualize that and go, oh, cool, I can build all that on my C-type, and then blah blah blah. That's wicked. So then you go, oh, okay, cool, and then you go, okay, cool. Like, and it's bonkers. Hey, like it just exponentially explodes.
Love the idea though. I think that would be
useful.
useful.
Right, yeah, it's cool. But then you get to this idea where you don't actually want to see. Maybe you don't want to see that because it's so intense of view with such complexity that you don't learn anything. Like it's nice, but you can't actually look at it anymore because it's too crazy. Huh? So I basically was exploring prod chains for like a year probably in the background. So I went to a graph-based, rather than sort of manually doing it or trying to have this thing that's where you build and grow them. A bit of me needed to just work out how to analyze and see it. Like, my thing is I with all these games, SimCity, RimWorld, I kind of want to know everything before I make a decision, which is, can be a challenge. So in SimCity, I'd want to know all the building sizes before I made a plan, because I didn't want to make a plan and then realize that the building was one brick too big on a plan. I struggle with that stuff.
Yeah.
So for ages now, I've been trying to, I guess, visualize and get to the point where I can control and work out the flow and the decisions in the prod chain, because there's a bunch of decisions that change your branching, I guess the resources you have coming in, change the shape of your pathway, right? And then trying to work out which ones feed lots of things, so the ones that are going to be bread and butter for the,
Yeah, because that depends on what other chains you're invested in right
where your
now.
imports are, and then that sets up what your trade routes are going to be.
What secondaries are useful to you in other chains.
Yeah, wicked. Exactly. So where I am today, and this is my strategy for the game, I guess, is, so that's a HT, that little, and I don't want to show it too closely because but that's basically a whole HT in one little picture.
Okay.
And then
heavy transport.
Yeah, exactly. And then my thing is managing the recipes and the volumes in between.
I see.
Looking at warehouse restrictions and the flow of goods, and then based on that, so I have a kind of visual recipe maker, and once I okay that, it spits out a schedule. I fucking love it, man. And this is so many parallels to my job as well, so it's amazing. But basically spits out a schedule, and then where's the next one? And then spits out a recipe card, which is like a massive Excel document of each step. Do this, make sure you have this, it goes there, it takes this long, it weighs that much.
So we've seen lots of versions of the Excel chart that you have here as the output, but they're all home baked, not always complete. They don't take into account many inputs.
Yeah, so I mean, those two bottom things, so that's the sort of Gantt schedule, and that's the recipe card. So those come out basically automatically every iteration.
Yep.
So I change some numbers and that all updates. And then basically looking at that temporally, which is then this big plan, that was my plan coming into release was to, I kind of worked out there's all kinds of ratios that you balance in the game.
Hmm.
And I guess for me, this is the bit I hated in testnet is I walked into a problem and then just kind of clued your way through it and then realized, oh, I used all of that and I should have saved some to make this. And you go back and, and you kind of, and it felt very wandery and hard for me. And so
Yeah,
I like a bit more.
you run out of something, then you're like, oh, I have to produce this. Takes
Yeah.
weeks. Yeah.
So, so my gist was to find out what a good cycle was time wise. And almost bioreactors for me turned out to be the sort of pace setter.
Yeah.
So I had, I knew I wanted this plan essentially is food. So it's core drills, food, and prop. And this basically gives me like 8,000 core drills, a bunch of food, 1.6 kilotons of food, and then about 1 HT's worth of prop. And so just the food alone, and I knew I only wanted about 6 bioreactors. I couldn't handle, one crew could handle about 6 bioreactors. And so you put one crew with 6 reactors, and it takes about a month to do the amount of food I wanted.
Yeah.
So I kind of committed to this monthly cycle of I'm going to do this thing, which is fairly, really tight. So really tiny values, just enough to make the bit I need,
Uh-huh.
like hand to mouth kind of idea. And I just kind of try and ripple through that every month.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So it
That's
all
kind of,
the refinement times all line up. Each column is a day, and you're being told this ends, start this on this day with this amount.
I'm not that rigid, but it's more, yes, like dependencies. This needs that, wait for this. So that will be the flow. And then I pretty much march down the Excel document going, yeah,
Cool.
cool. All right, do this one, do that one, do that one, do that one. You know,
Hardcore.
so it's, well, clear, like not, clear and repetitive, which I like in that sense.
Um,
Yeah.
how close is this to being public?
The challenge at the moment is there's a background calculation thing that basically I have a list of numbers for each process where it goes, how much, primary choice, and a few other things. So that's basically the user information. That's the bit that's your recipe card that if you did it, you would have different numbers, different
Mm.
locations. And at the moment, I have a thing that takes that, pre-processes it a bit, and then makes the visual stuff. So
Mm.
I actually need to do it the other way and have that thing generate less information up front and actually do it a bit more on the fly. And so for me, that's just kind of breaking it back down again and taking it from being a pre-process, because a lot of the things they just want information. You plug it. I have the thing that draws the nodes. That's the key thing, and then the other things just analyze that document, which is kind of backwards because then you need to make the node document to make the other information. So I just need to reverse all that, which to be honest is probably a little ways. Yeah. And I'm still trying to get my original one back working. So I figure there's a thing where I need to get my original one working just to honor that old agreement. Plus I was, community dev award winner for that. So I should keep it running because UG gave me stuff to make that happen. Yeah.
I want to
So,
see it back. On the crew building side, I'm not sure that any of the other community tools, I'm thinking Illyrium
I know
tool.
like Gray, right? Gray is probably the next crew mate centric person, and he has a little bit of that team builder percentage kind of stuff, which I think is good.
Not using that.
Yeah, I don't use it much. Yeah, like for me, it's all about I use Denker, right? Denker's the one for
It's
me.
alien info, yeah.
Yeah, like the process thing is I live off that. The production tracker, that's my go-to. I just look at that and it tells me where I need to focus next,
And
and
he's
then
bringing improvements to this weekly.
yeah,